back better, is maybe overused. But building back better isn't just about infrastructure. It's not just about building back houses better. It can be about building back maybe some of the sort of socioeconomic and societal structures, the way that food is managed, the way that the health system works and can be more and better coordinated. There's a whole variety of different issues which can be looked at. Now, at the moment, the focus is through a thing called the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment exercise. It's a standard exercise which is managed by the World Bank, supported by UNDP on the UN side, but has very much the engagement of the government as well. That PDNA, the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment, is being undertaken at the moment, and the expectation is that we should start getting results towards the middle of this month. And that could and may well be used as a platform for a reconstruction conference, which is being considered at the moment. I have no further details, but certainly, in answer to your question, we're very much looking forward into that space right now and understanding not only, of course, the immediacy, but understanding how the immediacy can be used as a platform to go into that later stages of full recovery and rehabilitation. Pledges to date. Well, pledges to date, we'll see, what we'll hear, I think, during the course of the event in Geneva. Hopefully, we'll have member states in the room in Geneva making statements about how much money they're putting forward in response to the appeal. Hopefully. It doesn't always happen because they haven't had a huge amount of time actually to review the document. Some have, I think, already made some indication that they will be making statements today, but I'm as excited and as interested as you are, to listen to those types of statements from member states.
I just want to know, what about the pledges made against the old appeal, against $160 million? When it comes to the fresh appeal, will that 85 million will be separated and the new pledges will be made, or that will be included in that? Number one. And secondly, how can you compare this disaster to other disasters? I know the response and plenty of other things are there, but I just want to know the magnitude of this disaster. Can we compare it with tsunami, or can we compare it with Ukraine war when it comes to the destruction and number of effectees and the problem they are facing? Thank you.
Let me just try answering those two. The flash appeal that was, what we're looking at here with the new appeal is an update. Okay, so it encompasses the 160 or so that was included. Yeah? And it will encompass the contributions that have been received against that. So I hope that's clear. Can we compare? Yes, we can from the point of view of an understanding of the humanitarian need. We can compare because we use standards as a UN family to understand the criticality of human need. So whether it's in food security, whether it's around malnutrition, there are benchmarks that we use to define whether or not we're in an emergency situation requiring humanitarian assistance. I described earlier the IPC, the Integrated Phase Classification System, which determines the levels of food insecurity that need an emergency response. So in the health sector, in the nutrition centre, we have the same thing. So that enables us to compare like with like, whether it's in Somalia, whether it's in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. And it's very much based on the concept of that's right behind all of this work, which is equity, humanitarian principles. And I don't need to go into describing what humanitarian principles are, I hope. but it is obviously on the basis of equity, right? So the comparison can be made, for sure. And this is where, you know, my colleagues from OCHA are so valuable, because they're the ones that coalesce and coordinate us in every emergency around the world, and are able to provide us with that comparison. And will flag up the fact that certain emergencies are not necessarily getting the due response. So, you know, why is it that the world is prioritising the needs of people in Somalia over the needs of the people in Mali, for example? Okay, so you know those types of issues are very, very prevalent, and like I said, it's through the humanitarian system, as led by and facilitated, coordinated by OCHA, that enables us to do that.
Okay, can I add something, Chris? Yes, I think in terms of comparison, sometimes we need to be a bit careful because emergencies come differently. Maybe in terms of the scale, you may say, okay, the floods, so these floods in terms of scale were more than the floods of 2010. But then when you begin to compare the overall impact, I think that comes also differently. I mean, an emergency with a big scale in a country that has good capacity may not have that big, you know, effect on communities, and the response will be great, the resources will be there, and you may not have, you know, people suffering a lot compared to an emergency that may not be to that scale, but in a country with, you know, less capacity to respond, and so the impact will really be good. So comparing emergencies can be a bit problematic, you know. You need to look at a number of elements, you need to look at scale, you need to look at capacity of countries, you know, early warning mechanisms. Perhaps in 2022, Pakistan is at another level in terms of capacity, you know, early warning, predictions, and rescue preparedness compared to 2010. So it makes comparison a bit problematic. Eh? Thank you.
First time and then up.
So I'm Faisal Razakhan. I'm from 92 News. My question is to you, in fact, a couple of one. Number one is that whether in this appeal of 1816, the most vulnerable group, women, especially the pregnant women, and the children who are suffering a lot, and especially when we are talking about the stunting and then afterwards malnutrition. And now the couple of thing is that now they are suffering from the different kinds of diseases, and that is actually coupling the disaster. So how this appeal is catering those vulnerable groups, number one. And the second is that most important aspect of this whole disaster, that majority from the catastrophe area, they are migrated to the different cities where the life is pretty settled. Unfortunately, they are begging at the roads because they don't have any means to survive and don't have any livelihood. And then afterwards they are ending up into a very bad shape. So whether any assessment by the UN agencies done in this regard, or the government organizations, and they have taken you in confidence, how those groups who are already migrated from the disaster area, how they are going to be catered and how they are going to be assisted regarding health, malnutrition, and all other aspects.
Really good questions. Really good questions.
I just want to add one point. Even the incidents of theft and robbery have been substantially increasing, especially in areas like Karachi. So people now mug frequently on the streets. Then these incidents also are linked to the floods because people are desperate.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think every unfortunate circumstance, disaster like this, brings with it some real problems. You know, and we have it as an embedded part of everything that we do as a humanitarian assistance community, concerns over issues of protection, and protection for the most vulnerable. And the focus is always on minorities. The focus is always on women, and the focus is always on children. Sorry, gentlemen, but that's the fact, and I think that's understood. In terms of the health and nutrition of women and children, I tried to convey that in my opening remarks, just about how serious the situation is right now for women and children. It's absolutely acknowledged. Like I said, I witnessed it over the weekend. And the loss of dignity, particularly that women have, living under a blanket propped up by bamboo. No dignity at all. And that's a real problem. And so we're well aware as humanitarians, really concerned to be able to help address that situation, particularly. And of course, pregnant women and infants are the most important when it comes to ensuring that they get the requisite nutrition. We know that this country has a real problem when it comes to nutrition across the board, 40% plus stunting. It's serving as an anchor, behind the boat. Pakistan just simply will not progress as a country unless you address that stunting problem. Too many children are not getting the nutrients at an early enough age that will enable them to learn at school, and they will not become productive members of society. So you have to address the issue of stunting in this country. And what we're seeing, of course, with situations like this is just exacerbating that problem, accentuating that problem. I witnessed it, again, I'm sorry, I keep going back to my Sunday, but, where, there's women there who can't breastfeed anymore. They don't have milk. They don't have the nutrients and the clean water to be able to provide. So this is the reason why right now we're into that second wave of the human, the disaster on human life, potentially, unless we address those issues of health and nutrition. On the issues of migration, we asked that question to a number of people over the weekend, and the answer was that we don't want to go. All we want to do is to go back to our houses. We're not migrating. We want to go back to our houses. That's where we will get our dignity back. Of course, those people who have made a decision to go into the city thinking that might provide them with a better opportunity are often going to fall foul of and find the reality is very different, and have to resort to begging or any other type of antisocial behaviour. That's unfortunate. We see that all over the world in these types of situations, and we have to mitigate against that. We have to work hard to encourage people not to make those types of decisions. I think as somebody who is a foreigner to Pakistan, the thing that always is so impressive is just